choose notes, I have to go with what is placed on my heart by God or Goddess. And I know I have to talk about certain things at certain times, and that's because I do my thing, and then press does their thing, and special forces do their thing, and other people do their thing, and that means I need to make sure that we're on the right page. And I can only do that through prayer. And I know that the big topic is the quantum physics, and it's probably a good place for me to do kind of a fill-up, because I'm waiting to talk about Mexican, and I'm waiting to talk about the encampment, or the concentration camp. Oh, perfect. Mathematical composition is something that isn't studied because it hasn't yet taken off yet. It's my contribution, and it's easy to explain, and I've been working on it for a long time, and I've talked to NASA already, and they're thrilled, aren't they? They aren't. This is the thing, is that I have a contract with Pemex in Mexico, because I don't understand yet why U.S. allowed their leader in quantum physics knowledge, a royal from Egypt, who has the secrets of quantum physics. It's passed down from generation to generation, and it doesn't get passed down to my children in order to keep me safe. And being of high station, that's released to me and entrusted into me to utilize as I see worthy. And the problem with Pemex, if you don't quite gather why quantum physics is so important with an oil company. Well, I have oil companies in Egypt, and we have them abroad. We have them everywhere, and I know that U.S. isn't considering feeling threatened by Pemex, but I'm going to tell you that I purchased up the backstock of Mexican oil from Pemex in order to get their attention, and I utilized my Russian trust fund. And now you don't have free oil from Mexico because you were skanking it. And I know Barack's laughing right now because God's telling me he's hearing, and he's laughing, because it's a game. You have to understand it. The public needs to understand it. They're just like, let's see how smart she is, right? And it's a game. It's like, let's push some buttons, right? Let's do it. And I'm like, okay, but I did this already a long time ago, so I'm going to share it with you. This is what I did. So I know that Pemex is the leader in oil in Mexico, and I know that they were stationed right north of me. And there was this this is funny. There was this thing that Barack did. He says, well, I'm going to offer them over in Rosarito water distillation program right off of the thing there, and claim it's INUC. And they're just playing, they're joking with him. Yeah, we're shin kicking each other, right? Kinda. It has nothing to do with, let's kick her in the shins for so and so. Let's push her down and knock her down. And so this is what they did. They put this program together for Rosarito. So we're going to do a water distillation. I said, I said, the unit you're using is over 10 years old, and the decibels are too high. You're going to mess with the ecological system underneath. And that's not the big deal, right? It isn't. And they caught. I got caught on tape at a protest over there. They're not allowed to protest. They asked me, please just come to this meeting. And so I went to this meeting, and I could see that this bitch was running the meeting. And I said, huh. And this guy, the men, and this is what you understand, the men say, please just go to the protest. They're not allowed to protest. So this lady says, you don't get to. And I took the guy's side and said, hey, look, I don't like it because of this, and I'll tell you, but this distillation thing. And so the bitch whore, who was running everything, and said, She shows up at the meeting, and I walked out of the meeting there too because I have a bone to pick with Lori Torres, right? I do. She wouldn't come out from what I understand. And so I put my boxing gloves on and I shoved them in the back of my pocket. And I had, Ramirez was sending out his team, police and stuff. And so I want to make sure that I wasn't going to fight anybody because I'm kind of known for fist fighting over there. You bitch. Leave my people alone. I was. And so I show up and I'm sitting there and England's there. And they got a photo of me like this with my hands on my hips, like this or something like that, and my boxing gloves are hanging out of my back pocket. And there's a protest, right? But there's no protesters. So I'm the only one standing behind this protest poster. Because it makes it look like, oh, well, we all approve of it. And I was pissed because I was there for 40 minutes and they didn't address me. So I was there and Lori couldn't come out because she was scared. She's a big politician over here. We go back and forth. Her mother's name is Rosie, and their people own Applebee's over there. And I went in to do some work there, and I met some really good people inside there. And they went to look at my website, and that's when I noticed. I said, "Hey, look, they won't let you friend me." And that's because all of her people there are Rosie's people, and it was restricted for Rosie's a big politician over there, and her daughter Lori's itty bitty big. Lori's a beauty in Mexico. She's a beauty, and we were pushing and pulling over somebody named Ramirez, right? Kinda, because he's kind of a hunky hunk. And I wouldn't do anything, and Lori's married, so it's like a moot point, right? Kinda. But I knew to fight her, and that's because we were set to challenge each other. And I'm telling the president, I said, "Oh, I see how this works. You just set one woman activist against another to down women's liberation rights." I said, "So let the bitch horse fight it out, and one's gonna die, and problem solved, right? Half problem solved. And her and I sent messages kind of back and forth. And I said, "Look what they're doing." And I said, send your husband in to handle this stuff right there. I'll let him handle it because, then it becomes a man's issue. Because we noticed that the men utilize the women to do the fighting because we're disposable. And that's why the methodology of skink is a big deal because they're tradable. And I'm offended and Lori's offended because it's a very big fight. It's hard for a woman. And I don't want to talk about oppression of man. Don't ever talk to me about oppression of man because I've been at the lowest, you consider the lowest of societies, and I was in prison there, and I can tell you that the lowest oppressed man has one industry: female, child, and animal. One industry: female, child, and animal. And if you can't figure that out, I don't know what to tell you. But that man gets pulled out before the women and the children and the animals do. And you can't tell me that man's oppression is so harsh on you. And I just have to move on to what I do. So we're going to go back to the water distillation, and this is such a it's going to take me forever. So I sit there and I think, and I even think I surpassed his intent, Barack's intent, because the capability or possibilities were so horrible for Mexico. I said, if this is what your intent is, Barack, I'm going to come kick your ass. It was bad. And so I said, so you've got Rosarito signing a lending agreement for Ainu, Indian Nation Unified Global. I'm supposed to bring them this, right? I'm supposed to bring them this, and I never did because I had to oppose it, I had to protest it, and I'm supposed to pay for it because I'm the wealthy Cap woman. So I said, well, I don't like it because it's not good for Rosarito and it's not good for the Indios here. I said, one, your unit's 10 years old. The decibels are too high. I said, you're going to structurally down the water purification commercials there because Rosarito don't need them anymore, right? And they do, and that means all of that gets removed, and they're all entrusting on this water being drinkable. And I said, so when the note becomes payable, who pays it? And that's what I told Rosarito. I said, who pays this when the note becomes payable? And they said, well, it's supposed to be me. I said, it isn't. I said, it's the citizens of Rosarito, and this is a huge, huge project. I said, you're going to bankrupt your city. And then that means this plant by Barack is going to have a lien hold on your city, which means he has a rights to open up the border. And that means you need water, and that means you have to go to Barack to get water by way of California. And that means U.S. takes militarily Baja California. I said, you know, you can't do that on a global defense without saying, knock it off, guys. Knock it off. Just understand that women are okay to be smart, because I'm gonna pull out the Bible, because God told you, and the Bible's written for men. It's not written for women. We're not counted there. Therefore, we're not accountable for your sin, and that's why God puts you as the head. That means you have to deliver upon the promise, or you have to submit to the obligation and responsibility. That means that's not my sin, that's yours. Because you promoted it and you oppressed me, so that's your jail time. That's your issue, not mine, because the Bible, God told me I'm supposed to write my own inspirations for the female, and I will. And he knows, he's told me, he says that's written for the men, and that's what, because the men are supposed to pave the way for the female, and then God says he knows that he sends somebody else to help the female, and I'm one of many. And so God told man to leave your wife, or not leave your wife, leave your mother and your father and cling to your wife. Cling to your wife. That means submit. That means stop kicking her in the shins. That means she becomes everything and everything and everything in your household. And I can tell you why quantum physics ways means that that's going to be harmony. Because she needs to be the head intelligence of your household, and you need to be the brawn. Because that's what the highest form of God is in marriage. Is female possesses him with beauty, and he can't keep his eyes off of her, and that means she controls a lot, and he just has to defend her and children. And that's why women need to be able to lead in the household, because they're financially sounder. They have more intelligence than you think, because you think the brain is smaller, and it is, but guess what? They have heart capability, and there's intelligence in the heart, and the decision making is best in the family by way of the female. But your God told you right there is to cling to her. That means submit. Because you're unhappy when she doesn't submit. You go off and tank your skanks. You tank your skanks. And the skanks aren't happy. They're female. They say, I don't deserve this. I don't want to do this. I don't want to be here in this human traffic, shin-kicking bullshit game. And I'm going to get back to Lori Torres, and I am. This is all important. I have to release certain things because God says you have to do it because it stamps in time, and that means it preps us for later. So, good. So I'm going to set this kink issue aside. So the water distillation plant. I said, and it's not happening. The last time I heard, I said it better not happen, and it became a global issue. And so I said, okay. So because not only is it expensive, but it costs $1 billion a month to defend. Because what is and there's only like one water distillation offshore distillation plant in Mexico, and it's somewhere like La Paz or something. I say, well, why are you choosing my beach? Because it's my beach right there. Because they want to bring people in and fuck with me, and that's what they wanted to do. And so I said, okay, well, I'm going to play a little game with the Mex. And so I start going over to Mexico. I start going over to McDonald's, and I got whatever news that I can get there, and I was picking up intel drop information because I was just a meeting place. And the Mex started showing up, and in twos, and that was good because it means it's a team effort, a unit, instead of an individual. And I met Jorge. I dropped him a couple of really good intel drops. One's called Even Flow, and its capability, maximum lift and capability by way of distribution and reignite. I can't say it because I'm not supposed to. I have to think of another way to say it.